The new Oticon Real is kind of like the Oticon More on steroids. The release of the Oticon More back in January of 2021 was a monumental shift in the way that hearing aids process sound, because it was the first hearing aid ever to use a deep neural network instead of having to rely on algorithms created by human engineers. That being said, Oticon has made some new feature enhancements, including several new forms of noise reduction that I will cover in detail later in this video, and they put it inside of their new Oticon Real hearing aids. Actually, I'm not really sure if it's pronounced Real or Real, like the Real Madrid soccer club in Spain. I happen to think that Real sounds a little bit fancier, but I'm pretty sure it's real. Nevertheless, I received these devices several weeks before their launch in the United States, so I've had enough time to put them through the paces, and I'm excited to let you know what I think about them. But regardless of all of the different feature enhancements of the Oticon Real hearing aids, just keep in mind that it does not matter how awesome any hearing aid is if you have not had that hearing aid fit and programmed by a hearing care professional who follows best practices. Now, if you do not know what best practices are, I highly recommend that you check out my video that I will link in the description, because best practices are the only way to ensure that you receive the maximum amount of benefit from your hearing aids. To easily find a hearing care professional who follows best practices, make sure that you check out my website, hearingup.com, and find a Hearing Up Network member near you. Hearing Up members are committed to following comprehensive best practices when testing your hearing, selecting your hearing aids, and treating your hearing loss, because you deserve to experience the difference that exceptional hearing care makes. First, let's talk about the 4 different styles that you can get the Oticon Real in. They come in the Mini Right R, the Mini Right T, the Mini BTE-R, and the Mini BTE-T. The R versions use lithium-ion rechargeable batteries that will get you up to 24 hours of battery life on a single 3-hour charge. You can also get up to an additional 6 hours of extra battery life if you pop these hearing aids back in the charger for only 30 minutes. Just like the Oticon Mores, the Oticon Reals also use inductive charging, which means that there's no exposed battery contacts, and they're incredibly easy to insert and remove from their chargers, either the desktop charger or the smart charger that allows you to bank extra charges inside of the charger and take it on the go. These hearing aids continue to be the only rechargeable battery hearing aids that you can change out the lithium-ion battery inside of your local hearing aid clinic instead of having to send them back to Oticon for them to do it. This makes dealing with future battery issues much more convenient when you don't have to wait several days to get these back from the manufacturer. The T versions are virtually identical to the R versions of these hearing aids, except for they use a disposable size 312 battery instead of a rechargeable battery. Both the Rs and the Ts have telecoils inside of them, and they both have an IP68 rating, which means that they are very resistant to debris and moisture. These are the fitting ranges for the Oticon Real. If your thresholds fall into the shaded gray area for at least one of these receiver strengths, then you would technically be a good candidate for these devices. I've got to say that based on real ear measurement data obtained in my clinic over the past several years, Oticon hearing aids continue to have the best high frequency response of any hearing aid brand that I've tested. This makes these hearing aids an excellent option for individuals with a steeply sloping high frequency hearing loss who want to try to still use an open dome or a vented dome instead of a custom ear mold. The Reals come in 3 different technology levels. You have the top tier Real 1, the second tier Real 2, and the third tier Real 3. Now, I basically give the same recommendation to everybody who's going to be getting hearing aids. You should be going with the highest level of technology that you can reasonably afford. If you cannot afford it, you should be dropping down to a tech level that you can afford, and then it is the responsibility of your hearing care professional to optimize the performance of those devices. Okay, so you're probably wondering about cost, right? Well, I'd love to give you what the cost is of these devices, but cost is heavily dependent on a variety of different factors, including what technology level that you get, what city you live in, what services are included with your hearing aid purchase, and the quality of those services. So any price that I would give you would probably be extremely far off. All right, guys, I hope you're enjoying this video so far. If you are, make sure that you go ahead and give it a like. It really encourages me to make more videos just like this one. And while you're at it, if you have not yet subscribed to my channel with notifications turned on, go ahead and do that as well, because that ensures that you never miss one of my newly released videos, and I release a ton of videos every single week. That being said, I really appreciate it. Now let's go ahead and get back to the review. As far as what these hearing aids look like, they look virtually identical to the Oticon More hearing aids that came before them, with one small exception. They now have an olive green color. Of course, being a United States Marine, I have a strong preference for this new color addition to the rest of the skin tone and hair colors in their lineup. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and show you what these look like inside inside of my ears. On my left ear, I'm going to be using a rubber dome with a retention filament to give you an idea of what that one looks like. And then on my right ear, I'm going to be using one of their custom ear molds called the Micro Shell. And let me go ahead and get up to the camera here. So left ear, this one is the rubber dome with retention filament. And then on my right ear, this is their custom ear mold called the Micro Shell. Now, I love the Micro Shell ear molds. They are incredibly small and they keep the tip of the receiver deep inside of your ear, which I feel like gives you a more stable and better sound quality. And because they fit nice and deep inside of the ear canal, it keeps the wire nice and flush along the side of my ear, which makes them virtually invisible. The rubber dome options from Oticon are okay, but there's a couple of issues that I have. Number one is that they got rid of the completely open dome. They now have the open base domes. Let me show you what this looks like on camera. It still has kind of like an open fit quality, but it's a little bit more rigid, so it's not as comfortable inside of my ear. It's also impossible to use any domes from any other manufacturers that might fit you better and use them on the Oticon hearing aids because of how the tips of the receivers are shaped. And third, the retention filaments on these are really flimsy, which means they don't act that well as an anchor inside of your ears for some individuals. For other people, they're fine. I just want them to go back to the way that things were when they were a little bit more stiff. So if any engineers from Oticon are watching this, please bring back the open domes and the more rigid retention filaments. Okay, on to some more exciting stuff. The Oticon Reels are Bluetooth compatible using the made for iPhone Bluetooth Low Energy protocol, as well as the Asha Bluetooth protocol for Android devices. This means that you can stream audio directly into both of your ears at the same time. This includes audiobooks, music, podcasts, YouTube videos, and even phone calls. If you use an iPhone 11 or newer with iOS 15.2, then you can also do two-way audio on phone calls, meaning that you can take a phone call just by clicking a push button on your devices, have a conversation with the person on the other end of the line without having your phone on you, because the microphones can pick up your voice and send it to them. I also absolutely love that you can activate and deactivate this two-way calling feature, because sometimes when you go into a noisy environment, if your voice has to be picked up by the microphones back here, it's too hard for the person on the other end of the line to hear you, so you can actually toggle that off and talk directly into your phone, but still get their voice inside of both of your hearing aids. If you happen to be an Android user, you do not have the option to toggle this feature on and off. You're going to have to talk into your phone, but you still get the stream of audio into both of your ears. Now, you can connect multiple phones and tablets to your Oticon Real hearing aids. However, you cannot easily switch back and forth between multiple devices. You constantly have to be turning off Bluetooth and on Bluetooth to make this transition over, which can be a huge pain in the butt. And since they do not use Bluetooth Classic, you are limited with the type of devices that you can connect to do this streaming. So if you have a PC computer or a laptop, you're not going to be able to do streaming directly into both of your hearing aids. You're going to have to get the Oticon Connect clip to do that. Now, the Oticon Connect clip does serve a dual purpose because you can clip that onto the shirt of a person that you are struggling to hear in a background noise situation and get their voice sent directly into both of your hearing aids so you can hear them substantially better. You can also directly stream audio from your TV into both of your Oticon Real hearing aids as long as you have the Oticon TV Adapter 3.0, which will dramatically improve the sound quality of TV for you. The new Oticon Companion App replaces the functionality of the old Oticon On app and the Oticon Remote Care app. This new app appears to be much more simple to navigate, allowing you to adjust volume levels, change between different programs, determine your battery levels of each hearing aid, locate your hearing aids in case you happen to lose them, and initiate your remote care sessions with your hearing care professional. Oticon decided to eliminate IFTTT, which stands for If This Then That, and Hearing Fitness from their new app due to low usage in their previous hearing aids. However, as a hearing care professional, I absolutely love that they combine the features of the Oticon On app and the Oticon Remote Care app into one app. It makes my job a lot easier, and it's a lot easier for my patients to understand. This means that you can go into one app location to make all the adjustments that you want to and to initiate a remote care session with your hearing care professional so they can make adjustments on your devices when you're in the comfort of your own home. Now, I will be doing a more in-depth review of the Oticon Companion app in the future, so make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on so you don't miss it when it comes out. Just keep in mind that the new Oticon Companion app is not yet compatible with the Apple Watch, so if you happen to enjoy the the Apple Watch feature of going into your watch and making adjustments to the volume and the programs and all of that. You will not have that functionality right out of the gate with the Oticon Real hearing aids. That being said, I do expect that the new Oticon Companion App will at some point be compatible with the Apple Watch at some point in the near future. Another piece of not so great news is that these hearing aids use Bluetooth version 5.0, which means that they are not using Bluetooth version 5.2, which is what version would be needed if these were forward compatible with Auracast. Now, if you do not know what Auracast is, make sure that you check out my video that I will link in the description, because that is going to be the future of Bluetooth technology inside of hearing aids. That being said, this isn't a huge issue because I do expect Auracast to be significantly down the road, and you'll probably even get another set of hearing aids before it's widely available. All right, now that we have all of those basics out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at what makes the Oticon Real hearing aids a really good hearing aid, and it all starts with the Polaris R platform. The new Polaris R chip still uses the same deep neural network as the Oticon Moors that was trained by over 12 million sounds to help it identify which sounds are important, like speech, and which sounds are not important, like noise, without requiring a human engineer to create algorithms defining all of these sounds. Okay, I know, if the concept of a deep neural network is something that's completely new to you, let me go ahead and try to break it down very simply by explaining the differences between two types of dogs. So I'm actually going to try to explain the differences between a German Shepherd and a Labrador Retriever. One of these dogs has long hair, it has teeth, it has 2 eyes, it has 4 legs, it has a tail, and it weighs about 85 pounds. The other dog has long hair, teeth, 2 eyes, 4 legs, a tail, and it also weighs around 85 pounds. You can see the problem here, right? I'm basically trying to explain to you what these different dogs are. Like, I can tell what makes them different, but it's really hard for me to explain what makes them different. However, if you present these two dogs to a deep neural network, the deep neural network is going to be able to identify thousands of differences between these two animals, so it can basically identify which one is which much easier. This is what I'm talking about when trying to identify which sounds are important by using human-made algorithms versus an algorithm that's created with a deep neural network. Now, this is basically how a deep neural network works with Oticon. They feed it a bunch of different sound samples, and the deep neural network is responsible for determining which characteristics of those sounds make these sounds important or not important. Now, the only knock that I have on the deep neural network is that Oticon did not update their deep neural network with any more sounds since they originally did this a couple of years ago inside of the Oticon Moors. And because I get asked the question of if these hearing aids get smarter the longer that you wear them, the answer to that is no. These hearing aids are trained on a deep neural network, and then that information is uploaded into the hearing aids themselves, so the hearing aids do not get smarter over time. All that being said, I am still very impressed with the deep neural network from Oticon. Oticon is still following their brain hearing philosophy, which according to Oticon means that they want to give your brain access to the full sound scene to support your brain in working more efficiently. Oticon is well known at this point for leaving your listening landscape open when you're in a noisy situation, rather than to use full directionality, which cuts off your access to sounds around you. This approach is relatively unique to Oticon and has worked really well for Oticon hearing aid users ever since Open Sound Navigator was released in 2016, making Oticon hearing aids some of the most popular hearing aids during that time. You can still create a directional program inside of the Oticon programming software, but most patients that I do this for do not notice much of a difference between their neural automatic directionality and this full directionality. According to Oticon, they are still using their More Sound Intelligence, More Sound Amplifier, and More Sound Optimizer. However, they did upgrade the More Sound Intelligence and More Sound Amplifier to 2.0 versions. And they happen to be calling this new trio of features their RealSound Technology. Even though there are a lot of similarities with these upgrades, they do allow you some new features, including SuddenSound Stabilizer, wind and handling noise reduction, and better data logging. Now, I've had a good week to play with these different features, and I have to say, so far, I'm pretty impressed. Let me start by discussing the SuddenSound Stabilizer. One flaw of Oticon hearing aids in the past is that I wasn't able to control sudden loud sounds like dogs barking or doors slamming unless I tried to reduce the maximum power output of the hearing aids or reduce amplification given to loud sounds, which can both have negative ramifications if you're trying to understand speech and background noise. Now, with SuddenSound Stabilizer, we have 5 levels of this transient noise reduction to prevent these sounds from becoming uncomfortable without risking losing speech intelligibility. This feature could be very helpful for individuals who have an aversion to sudden loud sounds or who have sound sensitivities like hyperacusis. However, the feature that I was most impressed with was the wind and handling stabilizer. If you've worn receiver and canal or behind the ear hearing aids before, you already know how annoying it is to hear wind noise, as well as anything else touching your hearing aids, like putting glasses on and taking them off, scratching around your ear, having your hair touch your microphones, or even you just touching your hearing aids to change the volume. This new feature significantly reduces the amount of wind noise that you hear and the amount of handling noise that you hear when you touch your hearing aids. In fact, I tested these outside on a moderately windy day in Phoenix, and I did not feel as if the wind noise was a problem at all while this setting was activated. I did create two separate programs, and the only difference was the wind noise reduction being turned on versus turned off, and I could totally tell a difference when I switched back and forth between them. The surprising thing is that when I activated this particular program, speech was still understandable outside in wind, and typically when you have these noise reduction algorithms for wind, it just reduces everything, so I was relatively surprised by that, and pleasantly surprised. But the handling noise reduction was even better. I've never had a hearing aid before that I've been able to go up and touch it and barely notice any kind of scratching. That's how well this feature works. I mean, you can touch the hearing aid, you can put glasses on, you can take them off, you can have hair prickling the microphones, and you virtually don't hear any of it. Not to mention, if you're in a conversation with someone and you have to touch your hearing aids for whatever reason, it basically prevents you from hearing what they're saying, and that does not appear to be an issue with these hearing aids. Now, you do hear a little bit of artifact, and it's kind of hard to describe. So basically, I'm gonna show you what it's like when you touch a microphone. I'm gonna touch my lapel microphone. Right, so you can hear the scratching from that. But when you touch the hearing aids, you kind of get like a something like that. Now, I have also picked up this perception throughout the course of the day, having conversations with people. It's very minor, but it wasn't triggered by wind, and it wasn't triggered by me actually touching the hearing aid, so I'm not really sure what was causing that. However, I've got to say, it's really nice to have a hearing aid that addresses both of these common patient concerns of wind noise and handling noise, and do it really well. Honestly, I just wish that they had this feature available with their Connect Clip and their EduMic, because if you touch those microphones, it is like scratching like crazy. You have to literally clip it onto someone and have nobody touch it for it to prevent handling noise coming through those devices. I also want to quickly talk about the spatial noise management feature, because it basically performs the same function as binaural squelch. You're probably thinking, Cliff, what the heck is binaural squelch? Well, binaural squelch is your brain's ability to identify which ear has a better signal to noise ratio when you're in a background noise environment, and then focus in on that ear and ignore the other ear. Let's say that we're sitting in a noisy restaurant and you're sitting on my right-hand side. Well, your speech is going to be more predominant in my right ear, and the noise of the restaurant is going to be more predominant in my left ear. My brain would identify that, and it would start to focus in more on my right ear than my left ear, allowing me to hear you better on my right-hand side. This spatial noise management feature performs the exact same function inside of the hearing devices. So again, in that same scenario where you're sitting on my right-hand side in the restaurant, the hearing aids are going to identify that they have a better signal to noise ratio in the right ear, so the hearing aids will start focusing in on the right ear more than the left ear. All right, I get it. You're probably like, Cliff, you are a nerd. Why are you talking to me about binaural squelch? But honestly, it is an important concept for you to understand. All right, the last major feature improvement that I want to talk about with the Oticon Real hearing aids is their upgraded data logging feature. Basically, up until this point, we've been able to do simple things like tracking how many hours you're wearing your hearing aids, what you're doing with the volume control, and how often you're using different accessories or streaming. But now that we have this new platform upgrade, we can now track a lot more data inside of the Oticon Real hearing aid programming software. We can now track what type of environments you encounter between visits. This includes the percentage of time that you've spent in simple environments, moderately noisy environments, and complex noisy environments. This new feature also allows us to track and compare your listening environments between your 4 most recent programming sessions. Next, we can track conversation activity per environment. This allows us to see how much you've been communicating with others, which gives us insight into your overall engagement levels. We know that hearing loss can lead to social isolation, so this can be an important counseling tool if we see reduced levels of engagement from appointment to appointment. Finally, we have the communication activity per usage period. This allows us to see what percentage of overall time that you are engaging in conversation with others, no matter what environment you're in, and compare it with your previous programming sessions. Some hearing care care professionals could care less about the data logging feature, but because I like to follow comprehensive best practices and person-centered care, I think it's very important that you actually understand how you're engaging with the environment around you using your hearing aids. Overall, I love the upgrades that Oticon has made with their Oticon Real hearing aids over the Oticon More hearing aids, because they do solve some problems that a lot of people have using hearing devices. While I would have loved to see an update to the deep neural network by having it trained with more sounds and seeing these devices be future compatible with Auracast, these devices are still very unique and popular among hearing aid users, primarily due to how they process sound so much differently than everybody else. On top of that, Oticon's ability to hit high-frequency prescriptive targets is absolutely second to none, and they will continue to be one of my go-to hearing aids for individuals with a significant high-frequency hearing loss. So if you're looking for a fantastic hearing aid and you have a hearing care professional who follows comprehensive best practices so they can optimize the performance of these devices, you may want to give the Oticon Real a try.